The board of Ambuja Cements had approved a purchase of 56.74% for an enterprise value of 5,000 crore rupees.
Hello and welcome to Business Today Television. I am Siddharth Zarabi and you're watching our special coverage of the quarterly results. And joining me now, Mr. Dinesh Kumar Khara, the chairman of the State Bank of India, India's largest lender, which has reported solid profitability numbers. Mr. Khara, welcome. Before we get into the fine print, just a quick overview of the key numbers for the quarter under review.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Siddharthji. Happy to report that for the quarter ending first quarter of 23-24, we have booked our highest ever quarterly profit of 16,884 crores. Our loan book has grown, domestic loan book has grown to the extent of about 15%. And when it comes to our deposits, they have grown at about 12%. So apart from that, our asset quality is pretty good. When we look at our NPA status, we have actually come down to 2.76% as far as gross NPA is concerned, and net NPA is 0.71%. On a YOY basis, it has witnessed a reduction of about 114 basis point in gross NPA. And when it comes to our net NPA, it has witnessed a reduction of about 29 basis point. Though we have also got a situation where on a quarter-on-quarter basis, these numbers looks little different, but there are reasons for it, because normally it so happens that in the first quarter, we don't have a benefit of carry forward of the recoveries, because de facto out of the slippages worth about 7,000 odd crores. We have already made a recovery of about 1,500 crore in the month of July itself. So that is something which otherwise on a quarter-on-quarter basis, when in the last quarter invariably we have got the benefit of carry forward of all such recoveries. And also there are invariably some one-offs which are there in the last quarter and which are invariably not there in the first quarter. Apart from that, the way Indian economy is, there are busy seasons and the lean seasons. So first quarter invariably is a lean season, whereas last quarter of the financial year is always a busy season. So that's why, comparing the first quarter number on a quarter-on-quarter basis may not be a good idea. We are very strongly advocating that these numbers should be compared on a YOY basis only.
Absolutely, 178 odd% increase in net profit on a YOY basis is absolutely impressive. You mentioned a couple of reasons for why this has happened. Beyond that, do you expect a similar trend in profitability for the rest of the year?
So our effort and endeavor would be maintaining the growth the way we have demonstrated. And why I'm saying that is because essentially it is attributed to the kind of opportunities which we see as far as the loan growth is concerned. Economy is expected to grow at about 6.5%. Real economy would be perhaps growing at even faster rate, if at all. Nominal impact of the inflation, if at all we neutralize, then perhaps it would be growing at about 11-12%. And so that actually is a reflection of the kind of opportunity which we'll have for growing our loan book. We have grown well in terms of our corporate book, which has grown almost to the extent of about 13% plus. SME has grown at about 16% in this quarter. Retail likewise has grown at almost the same level. Agriculture book has also grown. Rural has grown at about 13%. So we expect that with the 6.5% kind of a growth in the economy, we'll have decent opportunities of growth in all the subsegments of the economy. And that will probably give us an opportunity for building up the loan book. And we have already strengthened our underwriting capacity significantly, which will also ensure that the quality of the loan book remains impeccable. And that will help us in sort of generating profit the way we have done it in the previous quarter.
How do you expect margins to pan out, Mr. Khara, given that the cost of deposits has also inched upwards?
Yeah, cost of deposit went up last year, but then it was more so in the last quarter of the previous financial year. So we have generally seen that when the repricing of the deposit happens, so that has already happened. And when it comes to MCLR, etc., that normally gets kicked in when the renewals of the loan proposal happens. So majority of the loan proposal gets renewed in the last quarter of the financial year. So that is something. And when it comes to advantage of the increased interest rate, it actually gets spread over the period of time. So I think we'll have a similar situation, and we'll get to see some kind of a spread of the impact of the increase in the loan rates, and also in the impact of the increase in deposit rates. Though majority of that is already factored, but some part of it might even show up in the second quarter. But I would expect that normally it should normalize at these levels.
One of the other points, really, and you did talk about how annualized comparisons are better YOY rather than sequential. But one of the issues that I'm seeing in the numbers is also to do with provisioning. While it has come down in the quarter under review, fresh slippages have also gone up on a sequential basis. What explains this, Mr. Khara?
Yeah, sequential basis, as I mentioned, that uh, there were, when it comes to the slippages on a sequential basis, we had a situation where invariably in the last quarter we make effective recoveries, and last quarter also has got the benefit of accumulated recoveries also throughout the year. Even that also get reflected in the last quarter. So we don't have that kind of advantage in the first quarter. That is one part of the story. And the other piece is that when it comes to the slippages now, we have a situation where I would say that uh, some of the stress accounts, which are which are actually a bit sticky, so they are there. Whereas I think we don't have any low-hanging fruits in the stress vertical left out now. They're all very low value. So that is the other contributory reasons for the kind of slippages which we have seen. But as I mentioned, that out of this also about 1,500 crore worth of recoveries have already been affected. And also the SMA 1 and SMA 2, majority of the slippages actually happened into the SME, into agri, and some bit of that was into the retail sector. And we have seen decent pullback in all these segments in the month of July. So that gives a clear reflection that this is nothing but a reflection of temporary disruption in cash flows, which has impacted the slippage ratio. But I mean, in terms of quality, they are not really bad, and that is the reason why we could affect the recoveries. About 1,500 crore out of about 7,000 plus crore. So almost about 20% plus recoveries have been affected within a month.
Let's talk about credit offtake. Domestic credit offtakes has come out strong on an annualized basis, around 15%. Your views on that, and also if you could share uh, a bit of color on what the foreign portfolio and what is the growth we are seeing there.
Yeah, we have seen quite a broad-based growth in as far as the credit is concerned. It is there in the agricultural sector, it is there in SME, it is there in retail, it is there in corporate book. But international book, we have very mindfully, we have we were very, very careful in terms of growth in the international book, and that is something which has been ensured. So I think the way Indian economy is doing well, I think global perhaps we might have challenges going forward, but domestic economy is doing pretty well. So I expect to see decent opportunities of growth even going forward as well. Uh, I would say that infrastructure focus, renewable energy focus on EVs and the batteries. These are some of the very, new growth engine for the corporate sector, where we see the growth, and that it will actually show up into SME, and that will also show up into the retail sector. So the spillover of effect of the corporate book rising will be seen in the SME as well as into the retail sector. And of course, agriculture is again, it is a function of how the rain god rain god behaves. So I would say that till now the rains are pretty well spread out. So I think it will have a positive impact on the rural economy too going forward. So I would say that opportunities are quite universal, quite broad-based for the credit growth in the days to come.
Since you spoke about rain gods, I would say that many parts of the country and people would say that the rain gods are being too generous given what is happening, uh, and that is impacting inflation. But just one small point on the electric vehicle space that you mentioned. Mr. Khara, is the bank picking up any signs of emerging stress, considering that there is some amount of back and forth that is happening about PLI incentives, and we are hearing reports of uh, specific companies being impacted significantly?
We actually don't get to see any such impact because normally it happens that PLA, etc. It takes some bit of iteration to before it gets formally fixed up. So I think that is a kind of a situation, and I would not say that it is having any kind of a dampening effect on the fresh investment into the sector.
Mr. Khara, what about interest rates? The last time I spoke to you, we had a discussion about interest rates and what is likely to happen. And in fact, right from January, when we spoke at the World Economic Forum, what's your sense now? We've seen how rains are impacting a certain component of inflation. What's the overall sense you get at this stage?
Well, of course, I would say that the recent spike in the vegetable prices perhaps are more one-off than the trend line. So it should not have an impact on the inflation trend. Inflation numbers, what we have seen till now, has generally been in the range of about 5% only. And I think to that extent, inflation seems to be under check and control overall for the purpose of the policy. And when the policy meeting will happen, our expectation is that perhaps it will be a pause. So that is what our expectations are.
How long would this pause last?
Sorry?
How
I
long
missed
would
out.
the pause continue? Mr. Khara, I'm asking you, how long would the pause continue?
No, I think as far as spreads are concerned, as I mentioned, that if at all it's a stable interest rate regime, perhaps the spread should be what we have already recorded in the first quarter. We should get to see that reflected in the subsequent quarters also.
One more follow-up question on the interest rate cycle. Uh, do you expect a reversal anytime soon?
I think for the time being, it is expected to be paused because invariably MPC will be ingesting a lot of data relating to the economy, inflation, etc. So I think it will be maybe by the time of the next policy, we'll have some better clear visibility. But as of now, it looks like it is expected to be paused.
All right, Mr. Khara, as we wind up, I just want to come back to one of the broader macro themes, and this theme has to do with growth. There are certain reports which have come out in the past few weeks about uh, what India's economy will be, how per capita consumption will grow. So, on a longer time frame, what would you say about overall economic growth prospects for the entire country?
I would say that considering the global scenario, perhaps India is in a very sweet spot, and essentially it is attributed to very strong and robust domestic demand. And apart from that, the very clear focus of the government in terms of encouraging investment into infrastructure is now getting reflected onto, is now having a rub-off effect onto the private sector investment too. So I think if at all infrastructure investment will give an opportunity in the core sector, and which eventually will show up into the retail and also into the SME space. So I would say that all other sectors will be booming with the corporate sector and with the special focus on investment. So I think to that extent, India continues to do well, and hopefully will have many more years of such kind of growth opportunities.
Uh, uh, are there any other fundraising plans that the bank is working on?
No funding. I think we are well capitalized. We are having a reasonable amount of capital adequacy ratio. At this capital adequacy ratio, we can easily support the balance sheet growth to the extent of about 7 trillion. So, but we are very closely. We are reviewing the capital position, and as and when we will feel that we need to raise. We already raised some AT1 paper and also some infrastructure bonds. We are looking at the right opportunities, and at the right price we would like to raise our AT1 and also infrastructure bond, etc., to support the growth of the balance sheet.
All right, Mr. Khara, thank you very much for sharing time with us this evening to talk about the numbers. As always, very warm wishes to you and the entire SBI fraternity. Thank you very much for your time. Viewers, with that, it's a wrap on this conversation with India's largest lender, Mr. Dinesh Kumar Khara. We'll be back with more. Do stay tuned in to Business Today Television. I'll see you again. Until then, goodbye.
Hello and welcome to Business Today Television. I'm Siddharth Zarabi and you're watching Easynomics. On the show today, we discuss the digital personal data protection